It was a flat-out sprint race, and we had just enough in hand to beat the McLarens. He was inch perfect every lap for 53 laps.
Max Verstappen wins the Japanese Grand Prix to deny Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri.
That's perfection.
If you're McLaren, do you go, we missed something here, we missed a chance? Should they have swapped the cars?
It would be a risky thing for the team to do at this point of the championship.
Local hero Yuki Tsunoda.
To be honest, how I ended up in the race in terms of confidence level is completely different as how I started this weekend. So I'm really excited for next race.
A stunning pole lap, a brilliantly controlled drive to the win. It went all the way to the final lap, and Max Verstappen made it 3 Grand Prix winners in the first 3 races of 2025. Welcome to Suzuka. We're in the paddock, deep inside the Red Bull celebrations at the back of their garage. I'm Tom Clarkson, and with me for this show, we have Heikki Kovalainen, former F1 driver, race winner for McLaren, and a man who took a podium at the 2007 Japanese Grand Prix, but that was at Fuji and not at Suzuka. And we're going to be joined very shortly as well by Laura Winter, F1TV presenter. But Heikki, let's start with you. Just give us your summary of what you've seen this weekend in Max Verstappen.
I mean, I think we've seen pure brilliance by Max Verstappen this weekend. I think it's still the case that the Red Bull car is not as fast as the McLaren car, but Max has driven an absolute stunning qualifying lap, got everything and probably a bit extra out of the car. And then today, like you said, the race today was a sprint qualifying, a 53-lap race. And top 3 were separated by a second or 2 all the way throughout the race. And Max had the pace and didn't put a foot wrong. It was unbelievable display of his skills. And it's just a good reminder to all of us, if we've seen the last few races that, he's had sort of average races, because his standards obviously very high. He reminded us this weekend that why he's the 4-time world champion and one of the all-time greats. It's been a pleasure to watch. It's a pure display of sheer might, I'd say.
Heikki, you have seen many pole laps in your time. How good was he yesterday over 1 lap?
That was right up there with
one of the
all-time qualifying laps. It was right on the limit. I mean, I watched it a few times on replay, and it's just mind-blowing. It looks in a few places that he's not going to make the corner, especially I think it's turn 13, the entry to the spoon corner. It looks like he can't make the corner when he's entering the corner, but he just makes it and still has a clean exit. And then arriving to the last chicane, again, it looks like he cannot hook to the curb on the right on the corner entry. It just looks like he's going to miss the corner or he's going to lock the wheel, and he didn't. And he managed to change the direction. He arrived very fast into the corner, but yet managed to change the direction to the left sharp as well. It was just incredible to watch, and I have to give credit to the team as well. Although the car performance is probably not ultimately as good as McLaren's, they were able to dial it quite nicely balanced car this weekend, and credit to the team and especially the crew around his car. I think they were doing a brilliant job as well.
Now, Laura's with us now.
Sorry, I'm tardy. I was late. Hello, Heikki again. Last time I saw Heikki, we were in the desert somewhere at Extreme E when I was reporting there, and Heikki came in as a driver. So it's wonderful to see you in much more of a natural habitat, I think, for yourself. But sorry, I'm late. Busy post-race duties.
Better late than never.
Exactly. There's some technical problems, but I'm back. I'm here.
Laura,
I'm
we've been eulogising about Max Verstappen. Just give us your thoughts on what you've seen this weekend.
Just extraordinary. He came into a weekend where he'd made it all but clear that he wasn't happy with the team, that he wasn't happy with the decision to get rid of Liam. We came into this weekend with so much noise around Red Bull, and not positive noise at all, and a lot of noise around the car itself being an absolute tractor and a donkey and impossible to drive, undrivable. And Max actually used those exact words, undrivable, all over the shop, in practice, here in Suzuka as well. And so for him to then pull out that unbelievable qualifying lap that we saw, and I feel like Suzuka brings out the very best in the drivers, but also it's a driver track, right, where a driver can make a difference, and we saw that absolutely. And you saw it in Fernando Alonso's reaction to that lap, saying like he's the only guy who can do that at the moment. That's the level that we have to get to.
And even his arch rival Lando Norris was saying that.
Everyone, you had to go, my God, fair play, Max Verstappen, for that one. And then for him to back it up today with GP coined it on the pit wall, perfection over the line. And I think you can't really argue much with that. There wasn't really, as I can think of, a mistake, even a tyre out of line. All right, maybe a slow stop because they had some reserve pit crew in, but even then it was still pretty quick. It was just, an incredible day for Red Bull, for Max Verstappen, probably silencing a lot of the noise that was coming in around this weekend.
Well, Laura, let's now get the thoughts of team principal Christian Horner. What a weekend. GP described it as perfection. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolute perfection. I think Max really teed things up yesterday with a lap that will, I think, go down in Formula One history. And then today it was a flat-out sprint race, and we had just enough, in hand to beat the McLarens. He was inch perfect every lap for 53 laps, and got the job done. So, an amazing team performance. The engineering group have turned the car upside down this weekend to give Max something he could really, work with. And so, as a result for the team, it's the biggest tonic you could ever ask for.
Yeah, I mean, the car performance probably still looks lacking a little bit behind McLaren, but it's fair to say that the crew around Max's car fine-tuned it yesterday as good as it's possibly, can be done at the moment. And, Max had pretty good confidence today with the car as well. So it looks like the team managed to give him a car this weekend, maybe lacking maximum performance, but the balance was there.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think that, we turned the setup upside down over the weekend, and support back in the factory as well to get, the car into a position where he could really use it. And we had enough pace just to keep McLaren out of the DRS. And that was crucial today. I mean, Lando looked quick, Oscar looked quicker at certain points, and we just had enough in hand.
Is this circuit specific, or do you think you're now back in the game?
This is the ultimate circuit. I mean, this is a driver's circuit, but it's also a chassis circuit as well. So that's his fourth win in a row, his fourth pole position in a row. That's our 8th victory here as a team. It makes us the most winning team around this circuit. It's an incredible result.
What about Bahrain then?
Well, Bahrain's a completely different challenge. I think McLaren again will be super hard, to take on there. But you just got to keep keeping the pressure on. I mean, on Friday, if you just said that we'd get pole position and win the race, I think you get better odds than the horse that won the Grand National yesterday. So, I mean, it's unbelievable.
Brilliant job. Well done.
Can I just say how good it is to see Heikki back fit and well. He was a seriously quick racing driver. He drove for me in Formula 2. He should have won a championship against Nico Rosberg if Nico hadn't have had a big car advantage. So he knows what it's like to drive a difficult car. But, it's great to see him back. He's one of the flying Finns.
Christian, he's doing a rally next weekend here in Japan.
And he's completely mad. But, and he's a father and all the rest of it. But it's great to see him back, looking in great shape. And definitely good to see him in the paddock.
Well said. Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's great to be back here in the Formula One paddock, and nice words from Christian. I've known you for a long time, and we've gone through a lot of things together. I actually raced for Arden when I was starting my career in the GP2 those days, the current F2, and I've been obviously always a big fan of Red Bull. When I've been following Formula One, and after my Formula One career finished, I've been following the sport closely, and I've always been a fan of Red Bull Racing. I always think they're a very racy team, they're a very aggressive team, and like to take things to the limit. And yeah, it's nice to be back here in the paddock. A lot of nice and warm welcome from everyone. I've had a really good chat with some colleagues, some drivers, some team members, etc. And had a good chat with Lewis the other day. And yeah, it's great to be back here. I've missed it a little bit, and actually when I went on the grid today, just before the race, it brought back some memories. The view downhill, the start line of the Suzuka circuit. It's a nice view, and although I was never on pole position to have the clear view, it was still a view of a nice racetrack.
Now, Max was never headed at any point this weekend. If you look at pole and then the race, is there anything that McLaren coulda, woulda, shoulda done differently?
This is the question I asked on the post-race show to the guys. If you're McLaren, do you go, Max Verstappen and Red Bull won this race, there's nothing we could have done? Or are they thinking, we missed something here, we missed a chance? I think pitting on the same lap as Max pretty much decided it. You know, there was no chance then of an undercut or an overcut, of leaving Lando Norris out longer in the way we saw Antonelli do and nursing those mediums. Yes, he may have lost track position then to Oscar Piastri, but it may have just given him a chance on fresher rubber at the end to do what we saw Antonelli then do, pick up the fastest lap and begin to pick up the pace. I don't know, it's all hindsight, isn't it? It's really easy for us to say sitting here, we're not under the pressure and the lights and the heat in the moment on the pit wall. But I just wonder if they could have done something different in terms of when they pitted the cars. And equally, should they have swapped the cars when Oscar was asking to? In the very first moment where you began to see that Oscar's closer to Lando than Lando is to Max, should they have swapped position of those two cars? And what does that mean in terms of where McLaren's priorities lie in terms of the driver championship, in terms of keeping two drivers happy, two number ones happy, and in terms of their bid for the constructor title as well?
That's a really good point, and in my opinion, it would be a risky thing for the team to do at this point of the championship. It's very early days, and it can hurt the
Heikki, I'm going to have
dynamic.
to interrupt you there. First race of the season, they asked Oscar to hold position going through some traffic in Melbourne. So we've had the team orders already. I know you say it's risky to do it at this stage, but they were prepared to do it at race one.
Yeah, and I didn't agree with that decision either. I think it would have been a risky, it was a risky thing already there to do. And the more you go down that direction, that route, it can be detrimental to the sort of internal dynamics of the team. So I would be very careful. I think they lost the race a little bit to some extent yesterday. You know, both drivers were not able to maximize the performance that they had in the car. The margins are very small. It only takes a tiny error and you're not on pole. And then obviously you're against Max, who sometimes can stretch to some unbelievable heights. But I think today they didn't have enough pace in hand to overtake Max on track. And I think they did the right thing by not swapping the cars around.
Do you know what? I'm surprised that McLaren pitted Oscar first.
They covered off George Russell, didn't they? But is that a case of looking backwards and not...
Where's your battle?
Well, right, exactly, yeah. Why are you looking backwards towards George Russell? And how wary are they then of Mercedes? And why aren't you looking ahead? And they had two McLarens versus one Red Bull. And you have to question if you had two Red Bulls versus one McLaren, would we have had the same outcome today? And I don't know if Red Bull would have been as tentative in their strategy as perhaps we saw McLaren, and in deciding not to take a decision to swap the drivers or deciding not to take a decision to undercut or overcut, they've kind of made a decision not to do anything.
Guys, I'd like your thoughts on this. I think McLaren, when it comes to the Drivers' Championship, have got a problem. And I'm not just saying this because we're sat at Red Bull. I think the Constructors' Championship, they're looking very strong. But we're already seeing the McLaren drivers taking points off each other. And a Max Verstappen that has an entire team focused on him in a car that is competitive enough to win from pole position, I think is going to cause them a real headache. What's the gap in the championship now? It's 1 point between Lando and Max. I think there's going to be a few concerned faces to pit garages that way.
Yeah, and I'm sure they realize the situation, and I think the easiest answer to that is to perform at the slightly higher level. You know, just make sure the drivers don't make mistakes in qualifying, and the pit stops have to be absolutely perfect. I would still say that the last resort is to start doing team orders or doing something extra creative, if you like. They just gotta focus on the really small things. The margins are super small, so they gotta just sharpen up their game a tiny bit everywhere.
When you think of businesses at the top of their game, brands like Hello or Allbirds, you probably picture great products, clever marketing, and standout branding. But here's the thing. The real secret to success is what's happening behind the scenes. It's what makes selling simple. And for millions of businesses, that secret is Shopify. Nobody does selling better. Shopify powers the #1 checkout in the world. And with ShopPay, conversions can increase by up to 50%, which means fewer abandoned carts and way more sales. Whether you're just starting out or scaling fast, if growth is the goal, you've got to meet your customers where they are, online, in store, on social. Shopify makes it all flow. The secret's out. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/nation, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/nation to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/nation. Now, Laura mentioned it a little while ago. A lot of the noise coming into this weekend surrounded the second Red Bull seat. Local hero, I think we can call him that, Yuki Tsunoda, got the bump up to Red Bull Racing in the days leading up to this Grand Prix. The man himself is now sitting next to us. Yuki, can we just talk about the last 10 days of your life? Are you feeling exhausted on the Sunday night of the Japanese Grand Prix? Because there's no other driver on the grid that's been through the emotional roller coaster that you have in the last 10 days.
Yeah, true. It's been lots of up and down. I mean, mostly up, so which is a good thing. But once the race week started, it's been went inconsistent, I would say. I think it's a bit, to be honest, normal, in fairness, because of just still learning the car. Sometimes able to nail the lap and, felt comfortable in the car, but some setup didn't. So it's still in the learning process. But actually, surprisingly, when I'm in the car and driving in Suzuka, is the time that I was actually relaxing and enjoying myself, like outside racing, with promotions and events, which is it's a good thing, which it shows that amount of tension is getting increased year by year for Japan. But at the same time, I felt a little bit, losing energy and sometimes felt quite tired. But once I hit the track, I just able to enjoy every lap. So it was quite funny with that. Yeah.
So once the visor's down, the noise is shut out, you can just get on with the job in front of you.
Yeah.
Can you take the positives from this weekend? I know I spoke to you Thursday and you said, look, if I say I won a podium, that's the headline, but points would be amazing. You've fallen just a little short today. It was a race in which qualifying was mega important. Can you take some learnings and some positives from the fact that second Red Bull hasn't placed as highly as you have placed it today? Yeah,
100%. I mean, I've done 53 laps, which is the most probably laps I had in this Red Bull racing car, which is able to drive quite consistent. Every lap's doing different things, and I learn every lap's a lot of things. So I'm able to build the confidence more throughout the race things. And to be honest, how I ended up in the race in terms of confidence level is completely different as how I started this weekend. So I'm very excited for next race. But at the same time, like you say, once in a year home Grand Prix. Obviously, at least I wanted to finish in the points, but I couldn't achieve that. So it's a mixed feeling for sure.
Well, Yuki, I think you've had overall a great weekend. I think you've jumped into the car pretty green without much practice, and all the way until the last lap in Q2, I think your weekend has been brilliant. You've been right up there with Max in terms of lap times and in terms of feeling with the car. You seem to have been more comfortable with the car than the few other guys who have been there on that seat in the past. I guess you can take that as a positive. And just the last lap in that qualifying, was that just a little bit of tire preparation and not going perfectly and just a couple of tiny mistakes, and it was enough to put you on the back foot?
What I think for now is everything is from tire prep. Actually, I was doing different kind of approach, which probably in the end, because the track getting cooler and cooler throughout the qualifying, and I was doing the approach that actually is the worst things you can do in the condition. And this kind of approach is a bit different as VCARB, and this kind of approach I was doing last 4 years, and I know now it won't work, which is I should recognize a bit earlier, but it happens in the Q2 run 2, which is a bit shame. But pretty much mostly coming from a warm up, and other than that, even that I able to feel like control the car pretty okay, like throughout the lap. It was not disaster lap. Didn't able to improve my lap, but considering amount of the prep, I was pretty bad. lap was pretty okay. So I think I can take still as a positive in that lap.
And did you do the first run in Q2 with the used tires?
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been worth to stick a new set of tires on the first run and give you a feel for the new tires and have a banker lap and then have a bit more perhaps relaxed approach to the second lap? Or do you think it was the right decision to do the used and then the new tire run?
Yeah, I think it was. In the end, I had only one lap, one type, and the thing is, it's also the approach I used to do. I thought about it, to be honest, in the car, but I was still, like I said, learning. So whatever I can maximize the lap, I would take it. So even the old used tire, I just wanted to try different thing. In terms of setup, in the end we can only do flap, but even that flap approach, I wanted to try a bit different thing and to put it all together in Q2. But unfortunately, even the probably soft run was already kind of edge of the warm up, and Q2 was went off the cliff slightly. So I think that was also shows a bit of good experience there.
Yeah, and just one more question from my side.
Great questions from our in-house racing driver
I'm
here.
interested in this technical side. I mean, Yuki, you, if I understood correctly, you are running a slightly higher rear downforce compared to Max. Was that something that you wanted to do, or was that what the team wanted to do, or what is the background on that?
It's more like I wanted to do, and because of until FP2, lots of red flag, and I didn't able to drive properly with such a limited time. And I was already doing lots of setup changes from FP1 to FP2. It was quite a big change. Already FP2 to FP3, a massive change as well. And to be honest, like I started to have a bit of confusion there. And in the end, I just wanted to have a bit more consistency. So even though I knew it's gonna be maybe a bit compromised for dry, especially in the race, I feel like I just wanted to have big consistency. And I felt at that point that for qualifying at least, I had a bit more confidence to extract performance from the package. So I mean, if I had one more qualifying, I would do different for sure approach. But I think it was the best choice I could have done in that scenario.
Yuki, I think you've acquitted yourself very well for the first weekend. Congratulations to you. Last one from us. What's the craziest gift you've had from the fans this weekend?
Oh, good question. Watermelon.
That's quite random.
Yeah, I mean, fruits in
delicious.
Japan. Please, you guys, please try it. It's incredible. I mean, it's almost as much as sushi and ramen. The ingredients here is amazing. There's quite big range of the price, but the fruits in general here is amazing. So, yeah, that one.
Yuki, very well done from all of us. I know you've got to go to a debrief. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Good luck in Bahrain as well. See you.
Good luck in Bahrain. I feel like we've just had a debrief from Yuki there. You've been impressed by him. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of stuff this weekend to the Finnish TV, and I've got the feel that from Finland side, all the fans and people who are following have been against this change. Many people have said that Red Bull Racing has been too harsh on Liam Lawson and he should have been given more time and this swap was not justified. I've had the opposite opinion from the beginning, and in fact I think Tsunoda, Red Bull Racing and Lawson V-Carb, I think that should have been the positions in the first place during the winter.
Yeah,
I think the Red Bull made a mistake there. Perhaps the information they had at that time led to that decision. I think the teams don't do these decisions lightly, so I always believe that there's some logic behind the teams, that they go through these things with engineers and management and owners. And I've seen Yuki this year, his body language looks different to last year. I've always had some doubts as well about him. His speed has never been an issue, but I've always been a little bit mindful of his sort of body language, and I've always thought, he just looks like he's not totally calm and like under pressure. Sometimes, he snaps on the radio and stuff. But this year, since I've seen him from Melbourne, he's looked really calm, really collected, really like he's taken a step forward. And I believe that this has probably something to do also with the decision that Red Bull made. I think they've seen the same change, and I think it's the right change that they made. And this weekend, Yuki showed his pace was really, really good up to that last run in Q2. And I think he will fare better in this team alongside Max Verstappen compared to Liam Lawson. I don't think Lawson is also as low as he looked on the first two rounds. I think it was too soon for him for a big team like this and put on this kind of pressure and alongside Max Verstappen is not easy. I think he can find himself and find the way again, find his performance basically on the V-carb. And I think he has a chance coming back and maybe one day coming back to this team, but he needs more time. Experience still counts. Not everybody is like Max Verstappen or Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher. Still needs some experience, and I think it's too early for Lawson, so this swap has been good.
Now, I know you've got to go, because Heikki's got a rally to go and do.
Oh, good luck. Love
So
that.
I feel
It's a
that
good excuse.
we're continuing the musical chairs, all right? Lawson, Yuki, Kovalainen. He's off.
Who doesn't belong to that group?
Look, good luck in the
That's
rally.
me. Thank you.
Heikki's
Been a
good luck
pleasure.
in the rally. I'm going to ask you now. I normally ask it at the end of the show, but can we just have your driver of the day? Yuki won it on the television. Who was your driver of the day in the Japanese Grand Prix?
Max Verstappen. I can't help but take him to that position. Antonelli had a great race. Hadjar had a great race. Actually, all the rookies had great races. But Max Verstappen, it was just amazing display of world champion on the limits for 53 laps. Just can't argue with that.
All right. Great stuff. Heikki, thank you very much. Great to see you again, echoing Christian Horner's thoughts. Laura, just back to Yuki. I felt that he's always had this brilliant character. He's always great to interview. But he's now backing it up on track. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, and I think he's even holding himself differently, taller. He looks, to me, physically bigger as well. He looks like he's packed on a fair bit of muscle. Helmut Marko said as much as well. And to back up what Heikki said, I think you can simultaneously feel very sorry for and feel it was quite a savage move on Liam Lawson for just 2 races, and be happy for Yuki to get his chance, and think that perhaps the mistake was made last winter and that this switch was inevitable, and maybe getting it done sooner rather than later was what was required, and all the goings on behind the scenes. But for Yuki, I think he's acquitted himself, as you said, so well this weekend amidst all the pressure, bar one snap into turn 2. He went into turn 1 apparently 15 kilometres an hour quicker than he's ever done before in Q2. So he went in hot, he was on the limit, probably pushed over it a little bit, but that's what you've got to do in qualifying. And I think he's driving a car that many a driver has found very, very difficult to drive, and he's doing it. He's done it well here. He's now got the learnings under his belt, and I'm really interested to see how he's going to go looking ahead into Bahrain, Saudi, 2 different tracks again, to see where he's at, where the car's at, whether P1 is where it's at, or P12, or somewhere in the middle. It's going to be interesting to see. Bahrain will perhaps give us a better view of the actual pecking order of the teams and the drivers based on pre-season testing and all the data we've got there.
And dear listeners, if we see Yuki go out on new tyres for his first run in Q2, you know where you heard it first.
What might have been if he'd done that? Who knows?
Heikki also mentioned Isack Hadjar, it has been a good weekend for all the rookies. Isack qualifying in Q3, getting his first ever points in P8. He's another one. I really like the cut of his jib. He's incredibly bright. He's got the genes to be bright. His dad is a scientist and his mum is a doctor. The team say he absorbs all the information. A lot of people can do that, but he also acts upon it as well. He listens to his engineers and translates what they say into on-track performance. And what a great job by him.
Brilliant. First points in Formula One, and they come at Japan. He came on our post show and he joked that that's why I didn't score in Australia and China, actually, because I wanted to do it here. It means more doing it in Suzuka, doesn't it? But it's funny because he came on after qualifying and I'm like, P7, you've out-qualified Lewis Hamilton. What a result. Second place rookie to Antonelli in the Mercedes. And he said, yeah, but I left a 10th in the chicane. You think, Isack, come on. But he's never quite content. But I think that's a real hunger that will serve him so well in Formula One. I've been so impressed with him. I think some questioned his temperament in F2, and you've often heard him sort of emotional and snappy on the radio, and as you hear all the drivers in the heat of the moment. But I think he's come in, and so far he's had a pretty turbulent 3 races, lots of different storylines around him. I think he's done a brilliant job today at a place that he absolutely loves.
And look, final one of the quartet, if you like. Liam Lawson, I mean, Heikki said it, you've said it. It feels like he's where he should have been all along, at Racing Bulls. I thought he looked quite broken on Thursday. I mean, you know, what a build-up. I actually said to Yuki at the start of that interview with him, you know, you've been through the most of anyone on the grid, but actually you've got to think of Liam Lawson as well.
We were talking about this, right? I can't imagine what it was like for Liam driving into the track, sitting in the car and thinking, I've got to open the door here and I've got to get out and there are going to be cameras in my face from every which way and I've got to walk in Racing Bull kit up to the other end of the paddock. And then I've got to get into my suit and walk all the way back down the paddock with all the cameras in my face once again to go and re-record the green screen opening titles. I honestly feel for him so much in the sense that takes so much mental fortitude to stand up and do that and hold your head high. And I'm glad the team took a little bit of that pressure from him in putting the lap board up with the lovely message that we saw, because it just meant that he could be a human and be hugged and have people around him in that moment. I just thought to myself, I don't know, that takes a huge amount to walk to the Team Hospo in kit knowing that the eyes of the entire paddock F1 motorsport world are on you, and then to get out there and do it in practice, do it in qualifying, do it in the race. Look, it is P17. Yeah, look, it was a race in which there were only a few people shuffled around, unfortunately Liam being one of them, but I think he's got to chalk this one off and go again in Bahrain.
Laura, I think you've summed it all up beautifully. I like what he said on Thursday. It was all, I can't do anything about this. All I can do is control my performance on the track. I thought he was very sensible in the way he approached the weekend. He didn't quite have the pace of Isack Hadjar, but quite frankly, why should he? We all think he's got lots of experience. No, this was his 14th race. So, no, he's still very, very green, and he will only get better from here. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. We talk a lot about performance on this show, physical, mental, emotional, and when life gets overwhelming, it's easy to forget that mental fitness matters just as much as the rest. Therapy can help you build better coping skills, set boundaries, and manage stress before it spirals. Because it's not just for major life events. Sometimes it's just about finding clarity in the everyday. But let's be real, in-person therapy can get expensive fast. Sessions can run up to $250 a time. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat weekly fee for online therapy, which can cost up to 50% less than traditional sessions. And it's flexible. You can do your sessions from anywhere, switch therapists if you need to, and fit it around your schedule. With over 30,000 licensed therapists, BetterHelp has already helped more than 5 million people worldwide. So if you've been thinking about trying therapy, this could be the moment to take that first step. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com /F1Nation to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com /F1Nation. Now, Ferrari. On paper, their best result of the season so far. Leclerc getting P4. Hamilton P7, quite a quiet weekend for him. I'm wondering, though, what the mood in the camp is after this one. In terms of points, best result, but actually, they didn't quite have the pace.
I don't think Ferrari are in Formula One for P4 and P7, even though that is their best result of the season so far. It's a funny one. I'm not sure what to make of Ferrari this weekend at all, and the race hasn't told us a whole lot, as we've said, because really it was down to qualifying. I spoke to Charles before the race and he said, look, that was absolutely the most I could have got out of the car in qualifying. They wanted to try and progress forward, they wanted the podium, they talked about the win even, but I think it was a tricky one for them to really squeeze anything out of. Leclerc pitting on the same lap as Max and Lando meant that there was no strategical advantage he could have gained either way. Lewis obviously made a bit of a gamble in starting on the hard and hoping for something to happen, but ultimately, yeah, you know, it shuffled out as it came into it, really, in terms of the top 10, except Hamilton got that place over Hadjar.
The Leclerc side of the garage, for obvious reasons, will be the more content, but sort of almost behind the scenes, I thought this was a significant weekend for Charles because his They did something to the car. He wasn't specific about what they found, but they've changed the setup. It's the first weekend this year that him and Lewis have gone in a slightly different direction in terms of setup, and it suited Charles. I feel like we saw him unleash his potential this weekend for the first time.
Yeah, he was definitely more comfortable in the car, and he said as much. He said, yeah, I'm finally feeling something. And whether that is circuit specific as we head into Bahrain, we'll wait and see. We're going to have really different conditions in Bahrain, highly abrasive track, and of course it's going to be really, really hot, and it's definitely not been that warm here. But no, Charles definitely seemed more comfortable, and I think it was important for him, especially after Lewis got the first win in red for Ferrari back in the sprint race in China, for Charles just to assert himself a bit in that team again and say, I've been the leader of this team for a while, you know.
That's what was going on Leclerc's car. Same for Kimi Antonelli. I thought this was a huge race for Kimi. Yes, youngest ever driver to lead a Grand Prix and to get fastest lap. All those accolades are great, but running deeper than that was he went so far on the medium tyre. I felt like he learnt more this weekend than either of the two previous races.
You've got to take it back to qualifying, though, as well, because coming into qualifying, he readily admitted, I didn't have full confidence in myself around here. This is Suzuka. This is a track in which the driver makes so much of a difference, and a driver has to be confident. This track demands absolute commitment. So if you've got even just a semblance of worry or nerves, that's going to be a tenth or so, you know, all over this track. And so for Kimi to not only have got through those concerns he had in qualifying, and concerns that have actually followed him since Australia as well, where he said, I'm trying too hard in qualifying. And qualifying, I think, is one of the areas he's trying to work on and on how to approach it. I think for him to get through qualifying, be in the position he was in alongside his teammate George Russell, to then go so deep on the medium, as you just said. And then equally, I loved the radio message at the end where Bono said, you're the fastest guy out there. And he went, I am pushing with everything I have. And I just thought, there is an 18-year-old who is out there living his dream, driving an F1 car around Suzuka, and he's the fastest man here. That is magical. And I love Kimi's attitude and approach and the way he's asserting himself in Formula One. I know that Bono and Bottas both gave him so much support in taking that step through practice into qualifying, into the race here at Suzuka. So he's got the right support around him, and I'm loving seeing the journey.
Absolutely. There's a team, I think, that could have learnt from Antonelli today. Actually, there was a moment just before the press conference started. I was talking to Oscar Piastri, and he was asking me about Antonelli's pace late in the race, because we were talking about whether McLaren could have done anything different strategically, and he just said, was Antonelli fast after stopping late? And I said, yeah, he was really fast. Fastest lap, caught right up to the gearbox of his teammate. And so I think McLaren will look at that also and go, we should have gone deeper.
That's what I think. And I'm not a strategist. I'm not on the pit wall. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. And maybe we're saying this because we wanted a more explosive race than we had. But I think maybe McLaren could look at that and think, were we a little bit too conservative in covering off or trying to cover off Max and kind of stay within the leader of the race? Could we have just created something a little bit different there for ourselves and be a bit more bold, a bit more experimental? And it may take that, if, you know, as the cars converge to this point, it is going to take something bold and creative and imaginative to get the better of Max Verstappen, if Max Verstappen and that Red Bull has now found a bit of a sweet spot.
And don't be put off, listeners, by, you know, the 5th and 6th place finish for Mercedes this weekend. That car was really quick, and it was only an error with tyre warm-up in Q3 that prevented, I think, George Russell being right up there, maybe with another front row grid slot like he had in China last time.
I think so. I think the track yesterday was cooling quite a lot, and so I think a lot of drivers were caught out with tyre warm-up. George was one of them. He said he underachieved, disappointed with that lap, could have been front row. And we would have had a very different race dynamic if that had been the case. You're right, I think that Mercedes is really quick. And actually, we're watching the onboard with George. I think it was on his Q2 lap yesterday, or maybe the first run in Q3. It looked magic to drive as well. I think it's definitely a much more compliant Mercedes now with a much bigger operating window. That's what they've wanted. They no longer can only win in the cold. I mean, they could have won here. It's been so cool. But I think, yeah, that Mercedes, certainly in the hands of George Russell with his experience and his confidence and the new demeanour he has as the leader of that team will no doubt be on the podium again very soon.
Laura, that's the top teams. What else caught your eye in the Grand Prix, or in fact this weekend? An angry Albon, perhaps?
Yes, so we saw a lovely giggly Alex Albon in the pen after qualifying. He was very happy. He said to me pre-race he was going to be looking sideways. He was hoping to stay kind of where he is. That's where he did stay, but it was not without incident. And we heard the radio in China, right? I am good, I am the best of everyone, which is one of my favourite radios I think I've ever heard. And I feel like I should play it to myself as a daily affirmation. Just look at myself in the mirror and repeat it. But I was surprised then to see a different kind of energy from Alex today in terms of what has happened to that car and why he wasn't feeling completely comfortable. And perhaps the nature of the race has somewhat papered over the fact that maybe that Williams was going backwards a little bit today. And look, Albon really wasn't happy with the shifts, was he? And then he wasn't happy with when they pitted him. And he was sort of arguing with the engineer, and the engineer was saying, trust me, it was worse before. We pitted you at the best possible place we could. Yeah, a strange one. I think what it does show for me is that Alex feels he is in the best form of his life, and maybe he has been for a while, but the car now is in the best place it's been, and so he has an opportunity, he feels, to not just put one over Carlos Sainz on the other side of the garage, who many thought would come along and beat Alex Albon every weekend, but also to be picking up really valuable points each and every weekend. And so perhaps when it's not feeling so good, he's got something to say about it. And that direct kind of feedback is what we now can expect from him. He wants to assert himself in that team.
That's the word. I think he's more assertive than he's ever been. I wasn't expecting the tone of the radio message to be as it was, to be honest, and I'm sure James Vowles will have a word with him. Also, strategically, I see Williams more often than not get it right. James Vowles is a strategist by trade, so he's pretty good at that. I reckon we're going to have an Alex Albon will turn up in Bahrain, perhaps being a little quieter on the radio. That's my guess.
Maybe a slightly contrite Alex Albon.
Yes.
I actually saw him walking out the paddock with his girlfriend Lily and trainer Patrick just a moment ago. I think yes, but also I do think drivers in the heat of the moment on the radio will speak a certain way in a relationship with engineers, and then I'd imagine back in the garage and back in the hospitality, it's a bit different. You know, what happens in the moment stays in the moment. But you're right. Positive, constructive and direct feedback in a relationship is important, but it's got to stay on the right line.
And some drivers say ciao on the radio.
Oh, they do. Did he say it? He didn't say it
No, he
again
didn't
today.
today.
There probably weren't that many overtakes, were there? God love Ollie Bearman.
He said it in China. And do you know what? He followed up here this weekend, didn't he? He was brilliant all weekend. Q3 and then...
His first ever Q3 as well. Which
on a real driver's track as well.
Exactly. And I know he did say he'd had a bit of experience racing here in Super Formula, but now he's here in Formula One machinery.
Laura, one test.
Right. Okay. He was saying he'd had a lot more experience than that.
You know,
one test here, Super Formula, but first time in F1 machinery. And you could tell that he just really, really loved this track. And I'm really pleased for him after what was obviously a very difficult weekend, first time out in Australia, and then he bounced back with points in China. And again, he's the rookie alongside the very experienced Esteban Ocon. And he's beaten him on merit this weekend.
And what a transformation for the team as well. Look back just to Friday practice. They were struggling. Ayo Komatsu, team principal, said, we are struggling. They rushed through an update on the floor for this weekend. They didn't get a chance to put it in the wind tunnel. They just sort of joined the dots in their heads and made that change, brought it here, particularly through that. They were suffering from instability last time out through quick corners. And of course, Sector 1 here is all about having a good balance through fast corners, and it's clearly working. So congratulations to Ollie, congratulations to Haas. Any other congratulations do you think we need to hand out this weekend? I mean, we haven't talked about Aston Martin, we haven't talked about Sauber.
Well, Alonso finished the race,
which is more than he's done.
Which is bizarre to say because he's one of the greatest out there. So I'm glad that, you know, considering that we did have kind of mixed conditions at one point, I thought, what if this is another chaotic race? race, and we do get a number of DNS, and obviously he had that off in the gravel earlier in the weekend as well. So Alonso did finish the race, but sadly just one place for him outside the points. I mean, for Aston, I saw Mike Crack walking past a moment ago looking quite pensive. It's not been the best weekend for them, I think, but with Alonso P11 they probably maximised perhaps what they could from their starting positions, considering they had a gamble with Stroll on the soft off the start. Didn't really work out. I don't know where Aston Martin are and how much they're actually just looking ahead to 2026 now.
Well, and Alonso said yesterday that he thinks the next couple of races are going to be really hard for them. So I think they're waiting for that first big upgrade, aren't they? And then if that doesn't work, then it's all about 2026. I would actually like to see Adrian Newey come to the racetrack. We haven't seen him yet because, of course, he's a brilliant designer. His record needs no introduction here, but he's also a brilliant race engineer. He's brilliant at running racing cars. All of the drivers at Red Bull I've ever spoken to say it's like talking to another racing driver when it comes to setup. And I just wonder whether he could offer something on this car on a given weekend, but he's not due to come to a race anytime soon. Now, in terms of congratulations, I think I need to give congratulations to my deputy team principal for two things. One, you've got this amazing engagement ring on your finger.
Thank
so
you very
huge
much.
Congratulations
Thank
from me
you.
and from everyone who works on the show.
Thank you so much. I've come into this weekend on cloud 9. Honestly, you've barely got the smile off my face. So I've had a great weekend and I feel very loved. So yeah, thank you.
Well, it's huge news for you. So
Thank
well
you.
done. But also, I feel I owe you congratulations when it comes to fantasy because
I don't know, Tom.
we've been
Let me have a look.
No, Laura, we've been scratching around. Why are we so rubbish
I
at
think
this?
you might have beaten me this week, Let's have a
But
look.
you made some changes to our team coming into this weekend.
I did. I couldn't let it. If I'm going to be somewhat attached to this, I can't let it be rubbish.
Well,
Tom, I'm sorry. I'm too
this
proud.
This is why we need you.
And competitive.
This is why
I
we
know,
need you.
Right.
And on your advice, we brought in McLaren. So
why did you not have McLaren, for goodness sake?
We did. That's the point. We brought in Isack Hadjar, and we also had Ollie Bearman. So
Ollie Bearman would have got you good points today.
Well, it's been a good weekend for us, and we needed to improve because what are we? P900. Oh no, sorry, not 900. 198,000th. 789 in our league. So huge congratulations to all the teams that are beating us. And of course, you can join. Just search for the F1 Nation World Championship to join the league, to race against me and Laura and the rest of the team. Do we need to talk about Bahrain?
We can have a word.
Well, no,
about
but who would you bring in?
Oh, for Bahrain. Oh, God, you don't know till practice. You can't make these decisions
Oh, I
now,
see, I
Tom.
don't.
We're not talking about Bahrain, Tom. You cannot make decisions about Bahrain now.
Oh, right.
We've got to wait till after FP3. You get all the data. You're an engineer on the pit wall now.
Okay.
You've got to play this strategically.
Yeah, okay, so this is
Making
why
these
I need
knee-jerk
you.
reactions, bringing in drivers
Laura.
willy-nilly. You have got to hold your nerve, pull the trigger at the right time, post FP3 when you've got all the data available to
This
you.
is why we need...
This is why I won the league last year.
Are you still leading the presenter
I am,
league?
but I had a nightmare last weekend. I played a big hand. I played my limitless chip, which is meant to get you all the points, but I had triple Ferrari in there. I had two drivers and the constructor, so with the disqualification, I lost loads. On a weekend, I should have scored really big.
Yeah, okay.
But I am 50 points ahead of Lawrence, but I should be a lot more ahead than I am.
Yeah.
So he may catch me up later in the year.
Well,
Desperate times.
You're still ahead after that.
I am still ahead, yeah, and I pulled an extra 10 points back today. If you're listening, Lawrence Barretto, I beat you by 10 points. Thank you so much. 11 points,
Laura,
11 points.
It's great to
But
have
I'm
you
not
on board.
competitive. I'm not competitive.
No, clearly not. Look, it's great to have you on board, and thank you for your time.
Thank you as ever.
I asked Heikki a little bit earlier for his driver of the day. Say it again. Yuki got it on the TV. Who was your driver of the day in the Japanese Grand Prix?
Heikki said Max Verstappen. Totally understand that. Absolutely right. It was near flawless performance today from Max. Mark of a world champion. I think for me, I'm going to say Kimi Antonelli. I think he went really long on the mediums, and I know there wasn't too much tyre management out there, but he did have to manage those tyres and going longer than most others. And then to be fastest out there on a track in which he had to really look within himself to get confident on, and the joy on the radio. Yeah, it's Kimi Antonelli, Hadjar, very close second.
Well, great choice. And I was actually going to say Hadjar.
There we
I
go.
think first points in Formula One. Let's not forget that he had an issue with his belts in Q1 in qualifying. Interesting. I talked to the team about that, and they said that they hadn't changed anything from the last race. It's purely the higher lateral loads here at Suzuka which was causing the problem. But he put that behind him, I thought, in a very good way in qualifying. He drove a very cool, intelligent race today. I think he's a really exciting prospect for the future. So, Isack, you get my vote. So 3 different drivers of the day, although we all agree that Max Verstappen was absolutely brilliant all weekend. Well, thank you, Laura. Great to have you on the show. Thanks again to Heikki. And of course, you can relive the race with highlights on F1TV, the F1 YouTube channel, and you can read more from the drivers on F1.com. And don't forget to check out this week's F1 Beyond the Grid with Ferrari's test driver, Marc Genet. And Williams team principal, James Vowles, is on F1 Explains this week as well. Now, we will be back with a preview of the Bahrain Grand Prix later this week. And we will, of course, be back with a full review of the Bahrain Grand Prix next Monday. So, Laura, what are your travel plans? When do you go to Bahrain?
I fly tomorrow, actually. Doha first, then connecting through to Bahrain and landing at some ungodly hour in the morning. But I'll sleep when I can.
I think I might be on your flight.
Lovely.
Look forward to that. Laura, thanks so much for your time. And thank you to you at home for listening. F1 Nation is produced by Formula One and Audio Boom Studios.